Welcome everyone! Today I'm going to help you master Kota in the wonderful Toyota GR010 hypercar. My name is Gregor Schill. I'm a professional test driver and coach for the Coach Dave Academy and also an esports driver for the BS Plus competition esports team. So without further ado, let's get right into it. As you know from our lap guide series, a quick hot lap already starts in the last corner in the previous lap, and to maximize this time the top speed forward on the first straight, you need to take a bit of a later entry here, so you really open up the corner more than you would normally do, so you can open the steering wheel earlier and floor the car aggressively earlier in time. This will gain you crucial hundreds, which can maybe make the difference between P1 and P2, right? And now, arriving on the start finish straight and starting the lap, we try to stay here as close as possible onto the white line. We try to not cut too much here like that, because the car can bottom out essentially or just unsettle. We used the second Rolex sign here, or the white line next to it, as a braking reference, and just about 20 to 30 meters before, that's where we start to brake. Really important, you flick the car slightly into the apex, so let me quickly drive downhill here, like that. So when you start initially braking, it's in a straight line, then you do a small flick to the inside like that, and then you brake straight, you wait, and then a really late turn in, because the hairpin closes up even more on the exit, so early turn-ins will be punished quite a lot, because you will be never able to go on to the power in the first place. So if we go now here out into the third person view, you see we want to arrive like that at the apex. It's important that you don't take the orange anti-cut here, because this one is way too big and the car will just bounce too much and you'll lose a lot of lap time. When you arrive at the apex, you can now be aggressively on the power and open the steering as you've done all the rotation necessary. Maximize the track, and this second corner is quite easily flat out, so you don't need to worry about this one at all. Now we come to the high-speed section of Kota, which is really fun to drive. And to help you master it, it's important that you cut here as much as you can, and here too, and it's just a braking tap here and here to get the car essentially around the corner. So you don't really need to slow the car down here as much with the braking pedal. It's more about getting the car just the necessary front end bite by tapping the brake really slightly and gently and feeling what the car essentially does. So that's the most important part here. And always try to aim for those orange sausages you find here on the bottom, because they show you where the apex of the corner is, and if you're able to hit them, you know that you got the line right? And just here after that we go instantly back onto the power, and here now it's important that we drive not one late apex, but it's basically a double apex. So what do I mean by that? We carry a lot of speed here over the first apex, run slightly wide here, lift and get back the car back onto the inside here. In the middle of the road is where we arrive, slightly back to the right, just lift 5% or so onto the brake to get the car just the necessary front end bite. Cut as much as you can, and the track limit allows you to. Position the car here in the middle of the road, small tap onto the brakes again, keep the car here on the inside, aggressively onto the power, and then here just when you have this direction change, it's important that you do a small lift, because if you stay pinned and 100% throttle through the section, the rear will always step out, so we try to prevent that by doing this lift. So now for this downhill section, you just want to drive a bit of a tighter line, because the white line will be slower. Now for the braking for this hairpin, it's important for you to understand that the hairpin is already tight, but the exit still closes even more up, so you need to do a really late entry. And how do we do that? First of all, we aim here for the second modal sign here, just before that. That's where you start to brake, so around here approximately. We try to stay really long in a straight line. We wait, and the problem is also here, if you drive in this view, the apex is blind, so it's really important that you can trust yourself that you do a late entry. If you turn it too early, you'll drive over the grass essentially. So really late entry. Let's go into the third person here. And then you can cut a lot here on the inside, and then bam, done with the corner, exit, floor the car, maximize the track. It needs a lot of practice, especially in those views where you have this big A-pillar and you don't see the apex at all. But if you basically stick to the reference points I pointed out, you will have a much easier life than if you wouldn't have them. Now, for the next hard braking zone, essentially, we try to aim for the Michelin sign here on the right. The big one is already the indicator that we need to prepare ourselves mentally to brake. And then our real braking reference point is the first Michelin board there. Here, the little one. And just before there, when we arrive, so just before we arrive there, that's where we start to brake. So really hard into the brake pedal here. Patience. We try to brake in a straight line really long to maximize the slowing down process, right? Because we want to have all the grip available for braking. And then early turn, and then we think, because we want to cut as much as we can here on the inside. Be careful here on the exit with the grip change so you don't lose the rear there. And then as quick as possible over to the left side. And you see here the white line on the tarmac there on the left side. That's our braking reference point. There we go to like 60-70% maximum into the brake. Trail into the apex. And now we try to hug the white and red curb. But don't take the orange sausage here. This will be just slowing you down more because the car will bounce a lot and you can't exit the corner in a great way. Then from this point we are relying purely on the mechanical grip. You have no arrow here. So as soon as you reach the apex, modulate the throttle around the grip you feel the car has, right? Don't floor the car instantly, it won't work because you don't have the grip. So just listen to the car, what it tells you, and apply then the throttle accordingly. Don't run too wide here on the exit. You still want to open up the steering so you can accelerate quicker, because you can then put a bit more power down, but don't go completely here to the exit, to the red area where you see there on the left, because this will lead to traveling much more distance. And if you know, the more distance you need to travel, the slower the lap time will be. So just watch out there, because we want to stay quite tight here on the inside here, so we can straight line this part. And now you are wondering maybe, what's the braking reference point here? It's pretty hard to spot. But you see here on the right side, you have the Bosch ad and the total energies ad, right? And just between those two, you see this metal wall, the safety barrier. And this is your reference point. So when you've passed that, that's where you start to brake. So when it's out of your vision, essentially. I try to follow here the rabat line, so you want to overshoot the first apex a lot. Stay wide, and then cut back to the inside here. Be careful here with the orange sausage. Maximize the track here on the exit. Bring the car over as quick as you can to the left. And then all you need to do is here use your throttle modulation at the tightest point, which is here, to lift slightly, help the car rotate, and then you can back on the throttle and manage the power. Now it's important that you don't try to drift too far away from the inside, because you have not a lot of time to bring the car over here to the right side. And then you see this Avis sign, right, and the white line, which is also level. They're on the same level as the Avis sign. That's your braking reference point. So just about 20-30 meters before we start to brake, don't try to go like that over the curb, because the car will unsettle a lot and you won't be able to recover the car. So maximum you want to use your track with wise is here the red and white curb. So just like 30 meters before we start to brake there. Now same applies here actually on the apex. Only the red and white curb is what we want to use. Don't take the orange sausage, because the car will bottom out. So carry a lot of speed on the power at the apex. Maximize the track here on the exit. Don't get a cut, of course. And then you see here after the Avis sign this tarmac stripe. That's your braking reference point. Here we start to brake, and same story again. Only the red and white curb if you want it all. If you feel uncomfortable with the force feedback shaking slightly there, just stick to the white line. So we brake, turn in, start to trail brake into the apex, and when we reach the apex, onto the power, open the steering, and then we are done essentially with the lap. Because this last section is so fundamental to get right, we'll have a look again in Delta. We arrive here for this tricky double left-hander where we brake in a straight line. That's where the Bosch and total energies basically changing. We can brake in quite hard in a straight line because we have, here you see, not a lot of steering angle going on. You see, in the moment we start to brake, we open up the steering, and then as soon as we steer more again, we try to get out of the brakes. So it's really important that you listen here to the car. Trail brake till the apex here, and then when we reach the apex, we're starting to go onto the power, maximize the track on the exit, bring the car over as quick as we can to the left side, with throttle into the corner. Then, as I said, at the point where the corner is at its tightest, which is exactly here, we start to lift. Small brake tap to load the front axle to get this front end bite. Back on the full throttle. And then we try to stay tight and don't run too wide here, because we need to bring the car over in time, just about here. That's where the AVES sign is, and then we brake 30 meters before that. Around 85% out of the brake then. Nicely trailed here to get the front end around the corner. We're done with the rotation. We manage a bit the balance with some throttle and brake input here, depending on how we get into the corner, because it's not really easy to replicate the same line after lap after lap. It's always, you know, a new scenario which you need to adapt. But when we arrive at the apex, we then floor the car, maximize track on the exit, brake there at the tarmac stripe, as you see here, really hard, because we have no steering angle at all almost, so we can really use all the grip for braking. And as soon as we start to turn in properly, we go out of the brake, trail brake till the apex, and then when we arrive there, manage the grip we have with the throttle pedal. And as soon as the steering wheel is almost straight, we can floor the car, and then that's done for the lap. I hope you guys enjoyed the lap guide. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them into the comment section. If you want to compare your own lap against the reference lap I looked right here, make sure to check Delta out. If you want to see how a quick hot lap looks around this car, make sure to watch the video until the end. And other than that, thanks for tuning in, and I hope I see you in the next lap guide. Bye bye.